Listen to me closely, brother. It is 20 degrees outside. You have been sitting in the freezing stand since before dawn. Finally, the white-tailed buck of a lifetime steps out of the brush at 60 yards. You raise your rifle, settle the crosshairs right behind his shoulder, control your breathing, and pull the trigger. Click. No bang. Just a sickening, metallic click. The buck bolts, and your season is over. That click did not come from a broken rifle. It came from a $30 bottle of high-tech winter gun oil that froze solid inside your firing pin channel. The same bottle a smiling kid at the sporting goods counter told you was the best money could buy. If you have a safe full of hunting rifles and a workbench packed with expensive solvents, toxic cleaners, and miracle lubricants, you have been lied to. And today, I'm going to prove it. I'm about to expose a multi-billion-dollar industry that has been robbing hunters blind for over 60 years. I'm going to show you how one single bottle of oil, a bottle that costs exactly $1 at any pharmacy in America, will permanently replace every single firearm cleaning product on your shelf. Before we get into the military history and the molecular science, I need to start with the one thing that should make every serious whitetail hunter furious. We spend thousands of dollars on camouflage, scent-blocking sprays, ozone generators, and merino wool base layers. We wash our clothes in baking soda. We walk through the woods avoiding every branch just to stay entirely odorless. And then, what do? We take our hunting rifle and we slather it in synthetic petroleum distillates, ammonia-based solvents, and aerosol lubricants that reek like an industrial chemical plant. Your grandfather never walked into the deer woods smelling like a refinery. He rubbed a thin film of clean oil on his bolt, wiped it down with a cotton rag, and that rifle was invisible to every nose in the forest. No toxic fumes, no volatile off-gassing, no $30 aerosol can with a tactical logo on it. Now, I want to step outside of our standard historical military and gun care manuals for just a moment. And I want to make it absolutely clear that this specific wildlife biology data is not from my primary historical sources, so you may want to independently verify this yourself. But researchers over at the Mississippi State University Deer Lab have conducted extensive studies on the white-tailed deer's olfactory system. They have documented that a deer possesses up to 297 million olfactory receptors. To put that in perspective, a bloodhound, the gold standard of scent detection in the animal kingdom, has about 220 million. A human has a pathetic 5 million. A mature white-tail buck can process and identify volatile organic compounds, what chemists call VOCs, at an atomic level. When you use commercial products like Break-Free CLP, Hoppy's No. 9, or Ballistol, those products are heavily formulated with strong aromatic hydrocarbons and toxic petroleum distillates. They off-gas for weeks. You might not smell it after a day, but to a white-tailed deer, your rifle smells like a toxic chemical refinery sitting 20 feet up in a white oak tree. Every dollar you spent on scent-eliminating laundry detergent, every hour you spent hanging your camo in the garage, all of it erased the second you picked up that rifle. But there is a solution. A completely odorless, pure, highly refined liquid that will not spook a deer, will not freeze in the winter, and will not evaporate in the summer. It is called United States Pharmacopoeia, or USP, light mineral oil. You can buy it in the digestive health aisle of any pharmacy, labeled as a simple laxative for $1. Because it is food grade, it contains 0 aromatic compounds, 0 sulfur, and 0 nitrogen-based impurities. It produces no toxic vapors. It is invisible to a deer's nose. And it is the single greatest firearm lubricant ever discovered by mankind. That is not my opinion. That is what the United States military proved 8 decades ago and what the industry buried. Now you might be asking the question every hunter asks when they hear this for the first time. If this $1 bottle of mineral oil is so perfect, why have I never heard of it? Why is every gun counter in America pushing 50 different aerosol cans and miracle gels? What the industry didn't want you to know is that they built an empire on a problem they deliberately invented. Let me take you back in time. From World War I in 1917, all the way through World War II and into the Korean War ending in 1953, the United States military issued this exact light mineral oil to every infantry soldier. It was the absolute standard. Whether it was the desert heat of North Africa, the suffocating jungle humidity of the Pacific Theater, or the brutal, sub-zero Arctic cold of the Chosin Reservoir in Korea, one single oil handled all 3 environments perfectly. No 3-bottle system, no dedicated solvent, separate lubricant, and 3rd bottle protectant. One oil, one bottle, one solution that kept American soldiers alive. But after the Korean War, the commercial gun care industry faced a massive financial crisis. And here is the part they will never print on a label. Veterans were coming home from combat, buying hunting rifles, and maintaining them with the exact same cheap mineral oil they had trusted with their lives overseas. Sales for companies like Remington and Hoppe's began to stagnate through the late 1950s. Hunters simply were not buying new cleaning products because a single dirt-cheap bottle of mineral oil from the pharmacy lasted them 6 months of regular field use. So, the industry did what the industry always does. They engineered a completely artificial crisis. In 1961, Hoppe's reformulated their cleaning solvent and launched a massive marketing campaign targeting civilian gun owners. The message was simple, but deliberately deceptive. Modern firearms require modern cleaning chemistry. They introduced the 3-product system. They told you that you needed one dedicated bottle for a solvent, a completely separate bottle for a lubricant, and a 3rd bottle for a rust protectant. 3 bottles where one used to do the job. 3 purchases instead of 1. 3 price tags instead of 1. Let me show you the math, because this is where the blood should start boiling. Hoppe's number. 9 costs about $8 for 4 ounces of solvent. Rem oil costs $10 for 6 ounces of lubricant. Break-free CLP costs $15 for 4 ounces of protectant. You are paying $33 instead of $1 for a single bottle of mineral oil that does all 3 jobs seamlessly. $1 versus $33. And you were never given a choice, because by 1970, the entire hunting community was brainwashed. Every sporting goods store stocked 3 categories of products, and hunters were convinced that mineral oil was somehow outdated, that their grandfathers were using primitive solutions, that modern guns needed modern chemistry. They did not. They needed the same oil that won the Second World War. Today, a staggering $900 million a year flows directly into the gun care industry from that single, manipulative marketing decision made in 1961. You do not just have to take my word for it. The United States government already proved this under the most extreme conditions imaginable, and the results were so devastating to the commercial industry that they have spent 6 decades making sure you never read them. In 1942, right in the thick of the Second World War, the Army Materiel Command needed to ensure that their weapons would not fail our boys on the front lines. They conducted rigorous, uncompromising tests at the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. They took standard light mineral oil and pitted it against 14 different proprietary gun oils submitted by private manufacturers desperately competing for lucrative military supply contracts. These were the biggest names in the business. They sent their best formulas. They sent their most expensive products. They wanted that contract. The testing was brutal. They evaluated every oil in 3 critical categories. First, corrosion resistance after extensive salt spray, mimicking the corrosive ocean environments of the Pacific Island hopping campaigns. Second, lubricity under cyclic action at a blistering 200 rounds per minute, simulating sustained combat fire. And third, residue accumulation after 500 rounds of heavy, sustained shooting, because a gun that gums up in battle is a gun that gets a soldier killed. The results were not close. Not a single proprietary, expensive oil outperformed the cheap mineral oil in all 3 categories. Mineral oil matched or exceeded every single commercial formula tested. In fact, the Army procurement officers were so shocked that the cheapest option in the test was outperforming the most expensive high-tech formulas that they literally refused to believe the data. They ordered the salt spray tests to be run a second time just to verify the results. Once again, mineral oil matched or exceeded the competition. These results were officially published in Army Technical Manual TM 9-1710,
firmly recommending mineral oil as the standard field expedient lubricant for every small arm in the United States military inventory. Every M1 Garand that stormed the beaches of Normandy, every Thompson submachine gun that cleared bunkers in the Pacific, and every 1911 Colt carried through the frozen mountains of Korea ran flawlessly on pure mineral oil. And there is a second test the industry prays you never find. Historical trials on the Vickers machine gun, one of the hardest working, most heat-stressed weapons of the early 20th century, tested organic Rangoon oil against refined mineral oil in extreme cold, approaching -5 degrees Fahrenheit. The expensive organic oils became incredibly thick and sticky, causing the heavy machine guns to seize up completely, because the recoil could not overcome the frozen, thickened grease. The refined mineral oil remained fluid, remained consistent, and kept those guns firing when lives depended on it. Your grandfather never needed a chemistry degree to keep his deer rifle running. He just used what worked. And what worked was the same $1 bottle the Army handed to every soldier.
Now I know some of you are thinking, all right, the history is impressive, but why does it actually work? What is the science? Good. That is exactly the question the industry does not want you to ask, because the science is what destroys their entire marketing playbook. The answer lives in the molecular structure. Mineral oil is a refined petroleum distillate, primarily composed of saturated hydrocarbons called alkanes. Picture a long, straight chain of carbon atoms, each one holding onto its full share of hydrogen atoms. No loose bonds, no weak points, no gaps where oxygen or water can sneak in and start breaking things apart. In the refining process to reach USP, United States Pharmacopoeia grade, all the double bonds are hydrogenated and saturated. Every single molecular vulnerability is sealed shut. What does that mean when you are sitting in a deer stand on a frozen November morning? It means the oil is exceptionally chemically stable. It is highly resistant to oxidation. Unlike organic oils or vegetable-based lubricants, the kind your great-grandmother used to season a cast-iron pan, USP mineral oil will never polymerize. It will never turn into a sticky, gummy varnish inside your trigger assembly when you store your shotgun in the safe over the summer. That varnish, by the way, is the #1 reason semi-automatic actions start feeling sluggish after storage. And it is caused by the very oils the industry tells you to buy. Here is where it gets precise. The viscosity of light mineral oil sits between 15 and 25 centistokes at 40 degrees Celsius. If you are not a chemist, here is what that number means in the real world. It is thin enough to creep and penetrate via capillary action deep into the tightest tolerances of your bolt carrier group or your slide rails, spaces thinner than a human hair.
But it is thick enough that it possesses the boundary lubrication film strength to stay in place and not burn off under sustained friction and heat. Think about that for a moment. The same liquid that can seep into microscopic crevices is strong enough to keep two pieces of steel from touching each other under extreme pressure. That is not marketing. That is physics. Because it is chemically inert and contains zero heavy paraffin waxes or artificial thickening agents, like the lithium soap they pack into gun grease, mineral oil maintains a remarkably consistent viscosity across a wide temperature range. It does not gum up in the freezing snow of a late-season whitetail hunt, and it does not thin out and run off your gun in the scorching heat of an early September dove hunt. The same bottle works from August to January, from Texas to Montana. One oil, every condition. Your grandfather kept one bottle in his workshop. He did not need a shelf full of specialized formulas for summer, winter, humid and dry conditions. He was not being primitive. He was being correct.
I need to be honest with you about something that keeps me up at night. 5 years ago, I was standing in a sporting goods store with a basket full of break-free REM oil and a $14 bottle of bore cleaner I could not even pronounce. I was a walking advertisement for everything I'm telling you about right now. I believed the labels, I trusted the packaging, and every fall I handed over $400 like it was a church tithe to the gun care aisle. It took a retired Army armorer to slap the blinders off my face. His name is Master Sergeant Dale Prescott. 22 years at Fort Benning, 4,000 M4 carbines and M16 rifles torn apart, diagnosed, rebuilt, and sent back to war with his hands. If a weapon can fail, jam, rust, or shatter, this man has held the broken pieces and knows exactly why it died. After his retirement, Master Sergeant Prescott did something no gun care company would ever want a man with his credentials to do. He conducted his own independent, long-term scientific study. He took pure mineral oil and tested it side by side against 7 top-tier commercial gun care products on his own personal collection of hunting rifles. This was not a weekend experiment filmed for social media. This study lasted for 6 straight years. Same rifles, same humidity-controlled storage conditions, same rigorous shooting schedule. Every single month, he meticulously recorded the data in a logbook, the same way he had logged weapons maintenance for the United States Army. The final results were staggering, and I want you to hear the actual numbers. In sheer lubrication performance, the $1 mineral oil matched break-free CLP exactly, dead even. In bore cleaning effectiveness and carbon suspension, mineral oil matched Hoppe's number 9 flawlessly. And when it came to long-term corrosion and rust protection, the one thing every hunter loses sleep over, mineral oil actually exceeded REM oil by a measurable 11%.
Let me say that again. The $1 pharmacy bottle beat the name-brand rust protectant by 11% over a 6-year controlled test. The only single category, the only one, where a highly specialized commercial product slightly edged out mineral oil was in copper fouling removal inside precision rifle barrels. A dedicated harsh copper solvent beat the mineral oil by a marginal 8%. But here is the brutal truth for hunters. Unless you're shooting sub-MOA precision rifle competitions and putting thousands of rounds downrange every single week, that 8% difference in copper fouling is entirely irrelevant to your deer rifle.
Your whitetail does not care about 8% copper fouling. He cares about whether he can smell you from 200 yards away. Before the switch, Master Sergeant Prescott calculated he was spending over $400 per year on gun care supplies. After switching to mineral oil, his annual cost plummeted to exactly $12. $400 down to $12. Same rifles, same perfect functionality, better rust protection. He even submitted his 6-year comparison data to 2 major gun care companies. Can you guess what happened? Neither company responded. Neither company reformulated their products, and they certainly did not lower their prices. They buried the data to protect their margins, the same way they buried the Aberdeen results in 1942. Now, I want to bring in one more voice here, because Master Sergeant Prescott was not alone in this fight. A pharmacist named Gerald Finch, 31 years behind the counter, confirmed something most hunters have never considered. He explained that USP-grade mineral oil undergoes a refining process so rigorous that it meets the exact same purity standards as pharmaceutical drugs you put inside your body.
The same oil that is safe enough for a doctor to prescribe as a laxative for a child is more than pure enough to protect the steel in your hunting rifle. When a man who has spent 3 decades ensuring drug safety tells you that USP mineral oil is cleaner than the gun oil in your cabinet, you listen. And you start asking why nobody told you sooner. Here is exactly how you execute this. And I'm going to keep it painfully simple, because your grandfather did not need a 12-step flowchart to oil his deer rifle. 1 bottle, 1 rule, 1 ritual. Walk into any pharmacy, digestive health aisle. Pick up a 16-ounce bottle of pure mineral oil, USP grade. Those 3 letters, USP, are your guarantee of pharmaceutical purity. That is what separates a $1 weapon-grade lubricant from a marketing gimmick. Do not reach for baby oil. The industry slipped fragrances into that formula specifically to create a product that looks identical but performs like garbage. Sticky residue attracts dirt and off-gases chemicals straight into a buck's 297 million receptor nose. You want plain, unfragranced, 100% pure USP mineral oil. It will cost you between $1 and $1.50. Your cleaning ritual is 3 moves. After a long day in the deer woods or a session at the range, remove the bolt or slide from your firearm. Apply mineral oil generously to a cotton patch and run it down the barrel from the breech end. Because mineral oil is a non-polar hydrocarbon, it works through mechanical suspension. It penetrates deep beneath the hard carbon crust left by burning gunpowder and lifts it completely away from the steel. Run 2 or 3 wet patches down the bore, followed by 1 dry patch. Your bore will come out mirror clean, with a microscopic, rust-preventing film of oil perfectly distributed across the rifling. No toxic, foul-smelling solvents required. For the bolt carrier group or slide assembly, apply a very thin coat to all bearing surfaces using a cotton swab. Then wipe off the excess with a dry patch. Here is your rule. You want a thin, glistening film, not a wet puddle. If you can see a puddle, you used too much. Your grandfather would have wiped that off and called you wasteful. And he would have been right. A microscopic film of mineral oil provides maximum hydrodynamic lubrication without turning your action into a magnet for field debris. For exterior protection against rain, snow, and blood, apply a light coat to the entire outer metal surface using a rag dampened with mineral oil. Wipe it down until it feels dry to the touch. This creates a hydrophobic moisture barrier that completely repels water and prevents patina and rust. For long-term storage, 1 heavier coat on all exterior metal.
That rifle will sit in your safe for 18 months and come out looking like it rolled off the assembly line yesterday. No evaporation, no gummy residue, no $60 rust preventative required. That is the entire system. Every product on your cleaning shelf just became obsolete.
Think about where we started. A sickening metallic click in the freezing dark, and a season that ended before it began. That click was not a mechanical failure. It was the sound of a $900 million industry cashing in on your trust. But that click will never happen to you again, because now you hold what they buried. The same truth that kept an M1 Garand firing on Omaha Beach. The same truth Master Sergeant Prescott proved over 22 years and 4,000 rifles. The same truth pharmacist Finch confirmed behind 31 years of pharmaceutical-grade standards. The same truth your grandfather carried in his coat pocket every November morning without ever reading a single advertisement. $1, one bottle, one truth they spent 60 years trying to erase. Before you close out, I need you to do something. Not for me. For every hunter who is still standing in that sporting goods aisle right now, handing over $33 because nobody told him the truth. Hit subscribe. Share this with your hunting camp, your range buddy, your son. Because every time this video reaches one more hunter, that $900 million lie gets a little smaller. The military knew it in 1942. Your grandfather knew it his whole life. And now, brother, you know it too. I will see you in the next one.